It is 8 o'clock, or 8:01 now. Welcome everyone to Melanin Talks. And we are so excited that you guys have joined us tonight on Friday night, 8 p.m. And some of you are in different time zones. I know, Anna, you're in Honduras, so welcome, welcome, welcome. But thank y'all for spending some time with us tonight. We are talking about mental health and everything that deals with that, right? Especially everything that's happening in our country right now and just in life, pandemic, racial justice, everything is on our hearts and minds. And, we got some things to talk about. And so I'm excited to host our panel tonight. My name is Kirk Brown. I am the Chief Development Communications Officer for the Ron Clark Academy in Atlanta, Georgia. And just really excited to get a chance to connect with these health professionals. Fred has brought us all together so that we can have this conversation and provide a platform and a space for all of us to talk and ask questions as well. And so that's what we're going to do tonight. And it's definitely interactive. And so we want to make sure that if you have questions as well, that you can type those in the chat, and so we can get a chance to get to those as well. Tonight is actually being hosted by a very special partner, and that partner is the Melanin MD, and they are a wonderful website and app that's going to be dropping that's going to help us as Black and brown folks to be able to find those Black professionals or those brown professionals that we need, those healthcare professionals. And so make sure you look up the Melanin MD. They're on Instagram. They're hosting tonight as well. So definitely check them out. And yeah, let's get this thing rolling. If you guys are in different cities or countries, go ahead and type in the chat where you guys are from so we can see that. Yep, we definitely need the Melanin MD plug too. Yep. Colorado in the building. Okay. H-Town, okay, what's up, Robin? Hello, San Fran in the building. Honduras, yes. Boston, Arizona, North Carolina. Okay, we all over the place. ATL, let's do it. New York, Athens, okay. Athens, Greece, or Athens, Georgia? Okay. You're about to say we global in here, okay? Athens, Georgia. Okay, Erica, I got you. Oakland in the building. Perfect. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. We're going to go ahead and get this thing rolling because we have some incredibly talented professionals here that's going to be sharing and answering some questions. So let's hear from them. So we'll jump off and get some intros from the panelists, and we'll start with you, Tamara.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Tamara Davis. I am a native Houstonian. I went to college at Clark Atlanta University, so I have my connections to Atlanta for all you Georgia people. But I've been back here in Houston for almost 15 years now. I am a licensed professional counselor here in Texas, and I have my own part-time private practice where I offer virtual counseling sessions for anyone really in the state of Texas, but I am located obviously here in the city of Houston and the surrounding areas.
H-Town, okay, perfect. Thank you so much for that intro. All right, and you, Danielle?
Hey everybody, my name is Danielle Richardson. I am a practicing optometrist in Los Angeles, California. I practice in a neighborhood called Fairfax. If you know anything about that, it's the streetwear capital of the world. So we're doing eye exams across the street from Supreme. Come see us. I did my schooling in Indiana. So I went there I went to Indiana University for both undergrad and my graduate studies. I've kind of been all over, but I've settled here in Los Angeles. And in addition to practicing as an optometrist, I run Fierce Clarity, which is a holistic wellness and lifestyle brand where our primary intention is to empower busy professionals to live healthier lives. So we do that through yoga, we do that through wellness retreats, and we do that through an emphasis on plant-based nutrition. So I'm super happy to be here and really happy to be having this conversation about managing stress and staying as healthy as possible.
That is dope. We're about to get into all of that real quick in a minute. I can't wait to touch on that. Okay, and you, Sadaka.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sadaka Cash. I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio. Portia, Erica, I see y'all in the chat. Shout out to Cincinnati. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist at Texas Children's Hospital Autism Center here in Houston. where I do developmental evaluations for kids that there's a suspicion of autism or other developmental disabilities. Also part of our department's collective on racial equity and inclusion for Black youth, where we are working on creating resources and providing access to resources to improve representation in our clinics, whether it be through books that are in the waiting rooms or promoting resilience in Black youth, and just creating an environment where families and providers can feel comfortable to talk about stress and anxiety that may come from racial problems that are happening out in the world today.
Awesome. So y'all see, we got a powerful panel here of professionals here that are going to be breaking it all down. So again, as we ask some of these questions tonight, something comes up on your mind, you're like, I wonder about this, definitely feel free to drop those in the chat. So let's start talking about like how you guys are managing stress. As we all know, like as we mentioned, there's a lot happening in the country between the global pandemic, you know, being confined to our homes, quarantine, whether we're quarantined alone or just with a family member that we're having to take care of. You may have dealt with COVID personally or know somebody who's dealt with COVID. And then also on top of that, we're dealing with racial injustice that's playing out in front of us everywhere. So I kind of want to start us off by talking about how you each have been able to handle stress and really protect your own mental health. Let's start with you, Sadika.
So I'll start out by saying I'm not a morning person at all. But I've been waking up earlier. Like I hate mornings, but I've been waking up earlier. And that's really been helping me. A stress that I deal with is work stress and, you know, dealing with deadlines, getting things done. Yeah. And waking up earlier is nice because it gives you more day to work with, right? And it gives you more time to ease into your day. And not just kind of waking up in time enough to, you know, to get ready and turn Zoom on, but you have time to really like pace yourself. I've been taking walks, which is a good way to separate my mind from the things that I need to do for a day and just kind of focus and on the beauty of nature, feeling the breeze, breathing in the air, getting outside. Also just being mindful of my pace with work. And trying to kind of comfortably work through the day instead of being like panicked, frantically trying to get things done. There's still the same 8 hours in the workday or same 24 hours in a day, whether you're tense or whether you're calm. And it just feels better when you give yourself the space to have a better pace. And then the last thing is I'm trying to stay away from multitasking. I feel like we talk about multitasking like it's a good skill to have, right? Like I can do all these things. Right. I can do all these things at once. You in an interview, you say I'm a good multitasker. But that's stressful to me. So if I'm eating, like I'm gonna eat and not try to eat and answer emails or eat and do these other things. Like take this 15 minutes or this 30 minutes or whatever. It's not gonna ruin your day or derail things, and just like do things one at a time. And that has been helping me a lot.
Wow. You said something so important there, pacing, because it can be so easy to just be sitting in front of your laptop all day and not take a break and not do anything but just work. But that can definitely build on the stress for sure. So that is a good tip. What about you, Danielle? How are you managing stress?
So how I'm managing stress is to really focus on being as healthy as possible. And so that comes down to food, number one, and number two, movement. So working out most days, I would say 4 to 5 times a week is kind of where I have been since quarantine started. We hold stress and emotional tension in the body. So for me, it's really important for me to actually physically move. And so I live downtown LA, so going for a walk isn't always the cutest experience. So I've really just been focusing more on obviously practicing yoga and teaching yoga, but doing online workouts, which I rediscovered. Beachbody On Demand has a lot of programs by Shaun T, who has always been like my OG get in shape fitness guru. So highly, highly recommend you guys do a Shaun T program if you want to get in shape. But for me, focusing on you are what you eat. So eating high energy, light foods that are going to be nutritious and healthy for me. and movement have been the number one ways that I'm physically managing stress. And obviously yoga and meditation and those sort of things help mentally. But in this particular season, I think COVID is such a physical disease that it has kind of brought my stress management to a physical level as well. So I've really been focusing on taking care of my body, keeping my immune system as healthy as possible. And that's been working really well for me to manage stress. Now, I'm a morning person, so these workouts are like 7 a.m. most days. So for me, it's been great to start my day that way with the workout. And then that once that's done, I have the whole day ahead of me. So I found it to be really great in sort of setting the tone for the day and also relieving any stress or tension or any worries or anxieties that I wake up with.
Wow, that's impressive. Waking up early to do workouts. Yeah, kudos to you on that one. Thank you for sharing that. What about you, Tamara?
So I'm very similar to Sadaka. I am not a morning person at all. However, I have in this pandemic rediscovered sleep. Sleep is something that's super important. I have to get a good night's rest or at least catch up on rest for me to be able to function. So resting is definitely one of those things that I make sure that I keep in my schedule. And since I've been working from home, one thing I've actually heard a lot of people say is that they seem to be a lot busier now that they're working from home rather than when they were in their offices. And one thing I try to make sure that I do is I keep my schedule. If I start work at 8 o'clock and I'm supposed to finish work at 5 o'clock, I stay within those same parameters that I did when I was in the office. And it's super important to have that because it sets those same boundaries that we had when we were in the office, that this is what time I start and this is what time I finish. And so I commend you guys for, focusing on the physical aspects of staying stress-free. For me, it's been the mentals, trying to make sure that I focus, on staying grounded by having plenty of rest, trying to drink a lot more water because that does help to reduce anxiety as well. I have my cup of water here for my anxiety to kind of keep me calm. So those are the main things that I do, and just not allowing myself to go outside of what I know is going to cause stress for me. So I try to acknowledge, okay, this is a situation that I know could cause me some additional stress, especially kind of trying to start a new business while all of this is going on. I try to keep, my regular 8 to 5 schedule during the week. And then, okay, this is my time on the weekend that I'll spend working towards my business. So everything kind of has its compartment and its defined boundaries.
Wow. I'm taking notes over here. Like, okay, let me get my schedule together. Let me get a workout in here somewhere. Pace myself. Like, these are all great tips, and I thank y'all for sharing those as we open up. And I got my water right here too, so you already know. So Danielle, you talked about just the holistic aspect, right, of being able to use yoga or like really centering on that holistic experience. So talk about that, how we can utilize that to manage stress.
So the best way to do it is thinking about yourself as a mind, body, spirit, right? Those are all agreed upon aspects of this human experience. And so I think you have to recognize that stress is affecting you on all levels. So like mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, stress is affecting you in that way. So when I think of taking a holistic approach, what I really encourage people to do is to find the activity, because no one's the same and we're each individual. So what works for Susie doesn't work for Jane. So it's not a one size fits all prescription, but you have to find activities or tools that are helpful for you in releasing stress in those ways. So we talk about physically, right? That's working out, that's eating well, that's drinking water, those types of things, right? Mentally, meditating, journaling, like getting your thoughts out, talking to a therapist. Spiritually, right? Prayer, meditation, bringing in those esoteric practices, those more spiritual practices that allow us to kind of release the heaviness that comes from trying to do it all ourselves. And then emotionally, the emotional body is really tied closely to the physical body. And so that's where practices like yoga, in my opinion, really are helpful in managing stress, because as you start to, hold these poses and do these different types of exercises, yoga is more of a mind-body activity as opposed to just a physical activity. And because of that, we're able to release a lot of tension, a lot of energy, stored emotion, stored stressor chemicals. We release all of that through yoga, and it comes out in like all these really kooky and crazy different ways. But for me, I think mind-body practices like yoga, like Pilates, like Qigong, those sorts of things really can help to anchor your stress management in something that you can schedule and you can do. The other things are great, but I find that people have a lot of trouble with consistency. So what I always tell I'll keep wanting to say patients, just you have to extend yourself grace, and you have to think of stress as a holistic thing, right? So just because you close your computer at 6 o'clock doesn't mean you're not still stressed, right? Maybe you notice you feel tense. Maybe you notice you're feeling anxious, you're feeling worried. That's a moment to return to a yoga, a stretching, a breathing, a time to go for a walk. It's considering how you can structure those tools within your day and within your week and within your overall lifestyle, so that you're not getting out of balance and you're not experiencing increased stress in one department and kind of neglecting it until it spills over into the others.
Wow. That, again, great tips. I'm curious for you guys that are in the chat as well. What are you guys doing to manage stress? Are you guys doing yoga? Are you taking walks? Like Danielle mentioned, I have a 10-month-old. My wife, she does yoga all the time. She's like, I need my 15 minutes. I'm going downstairs to do yoga. And she's in there doing her whole yoga situation, and she comes back refreshed. So I know that what you're saying is true. Meanwhile, I'm still working. But I can definitely understand how and see how the yoga specifically, does wonders to help to manage and relieve that stress for sure. So I'm not seeing many responses in there. So I guess you guys aren't really managing your stress. Okay, Fred says running is his meditation, exercise, cooking, chocolate. Yes, chocolate is really good. Working out, stretching. Okay. Taking walks has been huge, daily walks. I need to do that more. My wife, she does walks with the baby every morning too. Meanwhile, I'm still asleep. So they're doing all the stress relieving things. They seem to be doing fine. So got to have a playlist.
I've noticed one thing that is a part of my daily schedule that I don't have anymore, which was my commute to and from work. That was really kind of a meditation tool for me because, there are two things that I'm normally doing in the morning when I would drive to work. It's either talking to my best friend, and she's on here, so I'm going to point her out a little bit, but I'll normally talk to her in the morning and we kind of chit chat and gossip a little bit, or I'm sitting in my car and it's completely quiet. And that's my time to really just get to think. And I've noticed now that we're talking about it, I haven't really had that opportunity to really stop and think and have that 45-minute commute to work. But I have noticed that since the pandemic has happened, there have been several times where I just got in my car and there was nowhere to go because everything is closed. But I got in my car and just drove because I just needed that moment, because that was a form of meditation for me.
Yeah, that is so important.
I think that's where those walks come in for me. Because I also like commute time to debrief after work and to get my mind right for work. And so the walks, I think, serve that same purpose. Like before the day gets started, you're able to either just be quiet, or you could still, put your headphones in, talk to your friend, listen to your music, and still get that time to yourself before you kind of jump into the day.
Yeah, that's true. I never thought about having a commute as a time to have that alone time and quiet time. I'm always like, I don't want to commute, but that could actually be a time of like just time to yourself when everything else in the world is crazy. You got that 45 minutes in the car to just relax, not think about anything, listen to your podcast or some of you guys have said. But yeah, that's an interesting point that y'all bring up. So I appreciate y'all sharing that in the chat, and also for y'all sharing that also. So we know that stress can manifest through physical ailments, right? So can any of you guys speak to like the effects physically that stress can have on us, and or the physical effects that stress has you've seen in your careers, and how does that show up?
Well, Speaking from a counseling perspective, from a counseling as well as a personal perspective, a lot of times, a lot of what Danielle is saying, a lot of our stress does manifest itself in our bodies, and continuous, prolonged, kind of ignoring of some of those symptoms can go to extremes of having things like anxiety, and you have extreme heart palpitations. The next thing you know, there's high blood pressure that gets involved in there. And then it gets to a point where functioning becomes difficult, and now we're no longer able to focus in our daily tasks. So all of those things are kind of things that could happen and exist once we start to feel that stress, and we're not acknowledging, okay, there's a moment where I need to take a break and stop, and, you know, maybe utilize some of those mindfulness practices such as yoga, Pilates, things like that, or taking a walk, taking a drive, so that it helps to decrease some of those other physical responses that we have to the stress levels that we're experiencing.
Wow.
And
Danielle, you said she had your mind. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sadika.
No, I was just going to add that, you know, stress is absolutely like a physiological process, right? So when your brain recognizes there's a threat or something stressful happening, the part of your brain called your hypothalamus, and, you know, triggers to your adrenal glands that release hormones to let your body know, like, we need to do something. There's something going on, right? And so those are like adrenaline, which we know, kind of pumps you up, get your heart going. Cortisol is another one, and that kind of suppresses your body's functions that might get in the way of you responding to things. So it alters your immune response. It suppresses your digestion. And so, as Tamir mentioned, that overlong exposure to these hormones in your body impacts your health overall. So, like, your immune system being able to function like it needs to, heart disease, digestion, your ability to fall asleep and stay asleep at night. Your stress, the exposure to these hormones over time also impacts you on a cellular level, like it impacts your genes. So just thinking about Black people and our history in this country, we've been experiencing trauma for the whole time we've been here, right? For centuries long, we've been experiencing racial stress and trauma. And so that impacts our genes. And so it impacts our bodies. And not just currently, but we are then you're created with the stress from the stressful genes of the people before us. And we just kind of continue to pass that along. So it's really important that, since we can't undo that we are as healthy as we can be presently to kind of combat that as much as we can. I think it's important also to notice your triggers, or notice your cues, notice when your body is trying to tell you that you're stressed. If it's tension in your body, if it's, attitude change, like, all of a sudden you notice like, oh, I feel like I have an attitude and I don't know where that came from. Or you feel yourself withdrawing from people, or you aren't able to eat, or you're eating more than you usually do, or you're not able to digest things the way you usually are. And so just kind of noticing when your body is trying to tell you like something is going on that you need to kind of pay a little bit more attention to.
Yeah, and I mean, from an optometry perspective, what I see in a lot of my patients right now in particular is stress-related blurry vision, right? Like, that is a true thing, and it happens, and it comes from stress or anxiety, but that is something that people experience. And then, I do my testing and ask, then so I practice a more holistic type of optometry in general. So like the questions I'm talking to patients about, I'm doing the test and I look at all the numbers and I'm like, well, what's going on in your life? Did you change jobs? Have you been furloughed? Like, what's happening? Where is this coming from? And, we see, obviously, you can have stomach, you can have a lot of things that happen from the neck down, but just from an ocular perspective, there can be stress-related blurry vision that happens.
Look, y'all just said a whole lot. I'm over here thinking about my whole life, like, my eyes, gray spots and stuff like that, and just being, looking at the screen all day, thinking about everything that's going on in the world. You mentioned like tension, Dr. Cash. I mean, all that, especially when everything was happening with George Floyd and just everything in the media and being at home and like processing all that. I'm walking around like the weight of the world's on my back, you know, and it's definitely some of those, you know, signs that you mentioned of stress. It's like you're carrying everything in the world, and you're like, okay, what do I need to do to relieve this? Turn off the TV, turn off social media, right? Just go take a walk. What was that?
Create good boundaries around, like, you know, if those things are stressful, like I've been on Twitter too long and I can't read any more bad news. To put yourself on a little break, which is hard because I think we're so like used to or hooked on constant information. But I think it can be helpful to kind of set some parameters around, like, you know, whatever happened for the rest of the day, I can find out tomorrow. And
That's real.
I can definitely agree to that. I think with the pandemic and us kind of being at home, at least I know for myself, I've been on social media a lot more, even though I want to take a break from it. And it is kind of hard to move away from it. And I'm like, but it's the same stuff over and over. Everybody's doing the same thing now because we're all stuck in the house. And especially after the George Floyd situation and the protests happening, you know, I had a very strong response to it. And I was frustrated and upset and angry, and I was just like, I have to completely remove myself from all of these messages that I'm taking in, and not even just from social media, but just in all aspects of our life. We're constantly taking in certain messages that we're going to react to in some kind of way. We're going to have some type of response to it, and understanding what those responses that we have are and how we're acting on those responses is what we need to familiarize ourselves with. Like Sadaka was saying, knowing what your triggers are, knowing the things that kind of create a shift in some sort of way for you, you know, and it could just be a simple, you know, attitude shift, a shift in perspective, a shift in some sort of way that, you know, is different from what is the norm for you. But that also means that you have to have a true understanding of yourself, a true understanding of who you are, to understand and recognize when those shifts happen for you, so I can stop and say, something's off. What do I need to do? Because I'm not on the same track. I'm not where I was 10 minutes ago, you know?
Wow, that's really good. Erica Holloman said, where would be a good site to go to for someone who would like to start doing yoga but doesn't know where to start?
I teach free live yoga classes on Instagram, Monday, Wednesday, Fridays at Fierce Clarity. The classes I teach are really designed for beginner to intermediate students. So that's a great place to start. You can also YouTube yoga for beginners, which will produce a lot of videos and resources for you in that way. So if you don't know where to start at all, come over to Fierce Clarity. We can hold your hand through this yoga journey. But if you want something a little bit different, you can always do YouTube and just use the phrase yoga for beginners, and that'll help you get started.
Awesome. And Sam says the Melanin My Doc app will be available in August. So I'm guessing you'll be able to find some yoga instructors and resources there as well. So that's really, really dope. So look out for that. Carrie Kirk says, Dr. Cash, what de-stressing techniques do you recommend for young children spending more time at home, or for children with divergent needs, autism, etc.?
So I think, you know, children can also benefit from practices like yoga, especially for helping them to calm their bodies. It helps also with behavior, kind of regulating behavior instead of, you know, traditional ways that we punish children sometimes. Give them some time to have some me time to calm themselves. That way can be really helpful. Also muscle relaxation. So there's a practice where, you know, you kind of move through the body and, you know, you tense different parts of your bodies and then relax them. So then you can feel your body progressively relaxing along the way. So, you know, tense up your jaw and then release it. Squeeze your hands and release it and see how that feels, and kind of move through your body that way. Also, this is something that can be helpful for adults too. Something that I enjoy is guided meditations. Meditation can be challenging and intimidating for some because they feel like, you know, I have a hard time calming my thoughts and being still and being quiet. internally, but guided meditations where someone can talk you through what to imagine, what to pay attention to, where to kind of focus your thoughts can be really helpful in relaxing your body and your mind.
Oh, I know y'all see me coughing. It's not COVID, by the way. I got a test. It's negative. I just have a cold. I feel like I need to say that. You can't have a cold these days because folks be judging you. But just want to put that out there. So BG said, I have removed myself from going on Facebook so much, reading friends' comments and the desire to respond. That is so true. You go on Facebook or on Instagram and you see somebody from high school that you know, went to high school with or you went to school with, and they're saying things that are just completely bizarre, and you're like, what? And so you feel like you have this responsibility to go out there and educate everybody, or to respond and to you know, shoot down the false claims and things that they're making. And that can be stressful because that's not your responsibility, right? But it can be stressful. And so removing yourself from those situations, defriending, muting, all that good stuff, setting those boundaries, like Dr. Kat said, for sure, because that can all build up, indeed. So, all right. So I want to move on to so we talked about finding resources for yoga. What are some other ways that we can talk about finding resources for mental health professionals, counselor, psychiatrist, holistic wellness? I know Mellon MD is a resource for sure, but what other resources can we look to find those?
So first, I think it's important to think about what your goals are before you kind of to figure out what it is that you need to be looking for, right? So to consider what your goals are, the things that you want to work on, and things that you're struggling with, right? So, you know, if your goals are to process trauma, or you know, you're having some difficulties controlling your mood, or you're having relationship issues or issues that are getting in the way of interpersonal things. You know, some of those more interpersonal or intrapersonal issues can be better served in therapy with a counselor or psychologist. Whereas there might be other issues like, you know, difficulties regulating your mood, whether you're feeling really depressed or very, very anxious, or, you know, you're having kind of some explosive behaviors and things where you need to help regulating, you have difficulty focusing, then it might be helpful to seek psychiatry services, someone that can help you with medication management. And then, you know, with that, it's helpful to think about, you know, medication, while it can help you regulate your mood, or yourself, your behavior. It doesn't teach you anything though. So it can be helpful to do therapy and take medications together so that you're learning skills and you have some extra physiological help. Therapy for Black girls is a place that I always tell people to look for. I recently come across a Therapy for Black Men directory that can be, that I thought was helpful. The APA, the American Psychological Association, has a directory. Psychology Today is another place to go.
Perfect.
Yeah, there are tons of places to go to look for certain types of therapists. And like Sadaka said, there's different approaches and different reasons that you may need to seek out certain types of services. So it's important to know kind of what your purpose for seeking the services are, so you know what to look for. Even when you are looking for a therapist, so the same way when you're looking for a doctor, you know, you're looking for a certain type of doctor. Some people prefer a woman, some people prefer a man, a certain ethnicity. That's still very important even when you're looking for counseling services as well. So that's something to consider, you know. Is age a factor for you? The age of the therapist, is the ethnicity important for you? What approach and what therapeutic approaches are they going to utilize to assist you with the treatment that you're wanting to receive? Because it's all about your level of comfort. Getting counseling, seeking therapy, it's about your level of comfort, and we want to be able to build a level of rapport with you and to a point where you're comfortable, so that the treatment that you're being provided is effective. So knowing what kind of questions to ask when you go to seek someone out. So remember that we're both kind of looking to see, is this a right fit? So just because someone comes to me and says, I want counseling, doesn't necessarily mean I'm the right fit for them. I want to encourage, others who are seeking counseling to ask questions. And just because you step foot in that office doesn't mean that now I have to stick with this, for another year. Ask about insurance. If you do have insurance, you want to contact your insurance provider. Typically, they will let you know exactly what they will provide for you, how much it will cost if there's some type of copay. And typically, they will also give you a list of providers that are within network. I know my insurance provider, they will also ask you, what type of counselor do you want? Is there a certain age? Is there a certain ethnicity?
Oh, wow.
What are those things that you're looking for from a counselor? And they'll take you, give you a list, and you can make contact based off of that. Another thing that a lot of people are truly concerned about when it comes to getting counseling is obviously cost. So obviously, if you have insurance, use your insurance. There are counselors that also do direct pay. So it depends on what their services will cost for direct pay customers. And then for some therapists, they will also offer sliding scale fees. So based on what your income is, they will kind of make a determination as to how much it will cost for you to receive the counseling services on a sliding scale fee. One other thing is, even if there is a therapist that is not within your insurance network, you can still bill your insurance company. So you can still see that person. You would pay the counselor or the therapist directly, and then you would then take that invoice or whatever, and you would still bill your insurance, and they will let you know how all of that works. So there's several different ways to make the whole counseling part work, and ways to find different counselors, but it's definitely important to know kind of what to look for and what to expect, and what you really want to get out of the counseling experience.
Wow. That's really good. I didn't know you can ask all those questions like age
Yes.
and all that. So really tailor your experience. It's like a Build-A-Bear. It's really dope.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dr. Cash.
Your employer might have an employee assistance program, or EAP, that can provide an amount of free sessions. So they'll have a network of people that you can choose from and ask those similar questions, or have similar requests about what kind of therapist you would like, or what kind of person you would like to have be your therapist. As Tamira mentioned, the relationship between client or patient and the therapist is one of the most important things about therapy. And so really pay attention to, once you connect with someone or visit someone, that you pay attention to how it feels for you to be in the room with that person. And it's okay to shop around, and interview them a little bit, because the rapport and the relationship is one of the most important pieces.
Indeed.
And one other thing to note, I'm sorry to interrupt. One other thing to note, that it's very common to go into counseling feeling a little nervous and feeling a little uncomfortable. When we start to uncover our stuff, growth is very uncomfortable for a lot of people, for all of us. So know that your first time going to see a counselor, you might feel a little uncomfortable, because you're about to start sharing a lot of vulnerable information about yourself with someone who's a relative stranger to you. So keep that in mind when you go into it. And that's why it is important to kind of use it as an interview portion for your initial conversation, because you want to make sure that the vibe is there. I like to use a holistic perspective on things too. And if it just does not feel good to you, then it's probably not the right fit for you.
Wow, that's good. So real quick, before I ask the next question, Billions asked, Kirk is a faculty in education, how can adolescents best cope with the stress of the pandemic and the changes in learning due to the pandemic? Yeah, so as a lot of schools are going to be virtual again, starting in the fall, I think it's important to, as a faculty in education or as parents, to kind of monitor the workload that kids are getting. We saw in the spring when everyone went on virtual that teachers were just kind of dumping work on students and not realizing that, look, we're in a global pandemic right now. We're dealing with all that. That's stressful on top of all this schoolwork. And so, us being professionals in the schools, being intentional about scaling the work down so that kids know that we're still here for them, and that they can still achieve their academic success in a way that's suitable to what's happening in the world. So just kind of being mindful of that as well. And then also, again, those boundaries, making sure that there are breaks. At RCA, our kids only have school from 9 to 12, and then the rest of the day, they have a chance to sort of debrief, work on schoolwork. If they need to get a snack and all that, then we start again the next day, 9 to 12. So you're not sitting in front of a laptop all day doing school because, again, it's a pandemic that can be stressful. So those are just a couple of things to kind of keep in mind. If you're an educator, if you're a parent, to kind of monitor that activity and have conversations openly with your school's administration if you feel like something needs to change or something needs to sort of be modified or adjusted. All right, so hope that was helpful. I want to talk about Kanye real quick, right? Because we've all seen sort of the meltdown that has happened in the media with Kanye. We know that he has bipolar disorder and everything that goes with that. It's a complicated situation. So how would y'all recommend as professionals that we provide someone that we know who's having sort of a situation like that, or being afflicted by stress or having a meltdown due to a disorder like that?
I think it's important so what's difficult is that, the person is, Kanye, for example, is doing things that are hurtful or harmful. And, him specifically, he has this big platform. So this is like global now, right? Yeah. Whereas, someone that you might see outside is just talking to the people outside and you're not really worried about that person. But I think it's important to try to find in yourself the ability or the space to show some compassion and have grace for those individuals because, they are struggling with something, right? And so with bipolar disorder specifically, so you're cycling between mania, which is what we're seeing when he's doing 1,000 tweets a minute, and to depression. And so like, that doesn't feel good to him or people who are having those types of difficulties either. Like they aren't happy about what's happening, and just think about how hard it has to be to feel like out of control. Like you're not in control of what's going on with yourself, with your mind, your body. And so just think about when you like try to diet or a new workout regimen or something, and how often you start and stop it, right? How difficult it can be to adhere to treatment, to go to therapy consistently, to take your medications consistently. So that person might have some time where they are being normal, and then there's this period where they're doing all these crazy things. And so to just try to be mindful of that they are struggling with something as well. I think, you can't, and with adults, it's difficult because, being like a loved one of someone or a partner of someone that's having a mental health crisis or difficulty, there isn't a lot that you can practically do to make them get help because they're an adult and you can't force them. So that can feel kind of helpless and hard to just kind of watch this thing happen. Yeah. But to just try to be available and present when they are ready to do the work, to engage, have resources ready for when they're able to be in a state where they can have those conversations, that you're ready with the resources. If they're comfortable, if you're comfortable to attend sessions with them, if you think that might be helpful for their relationship or whatever is happening. But to really just try to have some compassion and understanding for, while it's inconvenient or annoying or like legitimately harmful what they're doing or saying, that they are also unhappy about what they're experiencing, and it doesn't feel good to them either.
Yeah, that's really good, Sonica. Thank you for that. Did y'all have anything else to add?
I just wanted to add, I definitely agree with everything Sonica said. Compassion is probably the most important thing that you can give to a person who's experiencing some type of mental health crisis. And of course, keep in mind that when it comes to, again, seeking out services, it can be a very uncomfortable experience, even for you. So it could be an uncomfortable experience for them as well. If you suspect someone is having major depression, a person who's in that state is having a very difficult time coming out of that to do anything. It may be difficult for them to just get up and go and brush their teeth and wash their face and take a shower. So contacting a therapist or calling someone to say, hey, I need help, might be difficult for them. So your role as a caregiver, as a loved one, in that showing that compassion, one, be careful of the language that you use when you're speaking with them. You don't want to say things like, what's wrong with you? Why are you acting like this? You're crazy. You know, be careful of the damaging words and the effect that it could have on that person, because for this person, they don't feel crazy. They don't feel, it doesn't feel that way for them. It just feels like, I'm just not in a good place. So be very careful about the language that you use when you're trying to talk to people. The other thing that I like to do, or I advise others to do, is trying to create some type of contract or pact with your loved one, saying, you know, this is something that, this is what you will do when you start to feel these things, you know. And it's very important to understand that person and what it feels like and what it looks like for that person. Because we hear depression, we hear anxiety, we hear bipolar all the time, and we have this idea of what it's supposed to look like, but it looks different from person to person, and we have to treat them as the individual. So when you see that individual, what is it that I need to look for? When this happens, what should I be doing? What would you like for me to do? How can I help you during this time? And then, so I use this a lot with, I work with students, so I use this a lot with students and say, hey, you can give this to your friend and say, hey, these are the people that you're gonna contact when you feel like this. And contact those people, let them know, hey, I'm putting you on my contact list for when I'm having a serious issue, you know, can you be my support system? So reaching out to them, letting them know that you support them, and supporting them in the way that they feel like their needs are being met and not how you feel their needs should be met.
Wow, a lot of great points. Thank you for sharing those. Taking notes for sure. I want to go to a question here from Taryn, and she said, question, are there physical signs that we feel in our body to know that we need to chill out or that we are reaching our limits outside of chest pains?
Absolutely. I think one key thing that so many people ignore is a headache, right? How many people get a headache and say, oh, I have a headache, I'm just going to take Advil? A headache is, again, your body letting you know that something is off. And usually you're spending too much time at the computer, you've been on your phone. You know, I encourage people to take visual breaks to decrease the accommodative strain that people experience, which can contribute to headaches. But I think a number one thing that people don't think or don't really regard as a symptom that something needs to change immediately is a headache. So I think that's really good. Also, neck and shoulder pain and tension. We store a lot. I don't want to get too esoteric here. I don't want to jump off my woo-woo bridge, but depending on where you are in the body, there are different types of emotions stored there. So neck pain, shoulder pain can mean one thing. Digestive ailments can mean another. Hip issues, low back issues. Those are all tied to different things in your life and different stressors. So I would say, you know, when you think about what physical signs are asking, or what physical signs are telling you it's time to chill out, any adverse reaction you're experiencing, headache, stomach ache, fatigue, soreness, pain, tension, or like numbing, tingling, all of those signs, all of those can be signs of physical and metaphysical ailments that you're experiencing. So I always say, when the body, you know, it's like those things are like a little knock at the door, and it, you know, if you don't listen when it's knocking gently, like that knock is going to get louder and louder, kind of like what Tamara said earlier in the conversation. So I think you have to pay attention to anytime you're feeling uncomfortable, anytime you're feeling pain, anytime you're feeling, you know, anything outside of normal. So even common things, again, like headaches, like stomach aches, back aches, those are all signs that your body is telling you that you need to take a break, you need to stretch, you need to hydrate. There is some behavior modification typically that can relieve or alleviate that physical stress that you're experiencing.
Sleep patterns is another one.
What was that?
Sleep patterns. If your sleep pattern starts to change and you see some differences in that, like it's taking you longer to fall asleep or you're waking up in the middle of the night, that's probably some sign that there's maybe some level of stress, or there's something mentally that you're kind of ruminating over and you're having difficulty slowing that down, and it disrupts your sleep.
Wow.
As well as dreams. Personally during the pandemic, I've been having very vivid dreams and weird. And remembering them all, and just kind of paying attention to like, okay, my brain is overworked, and it's taking in a lot and it's doing a lot and it's coming out in my sleep as well.
Yeah. I want to get to a couple of these questions here as we round out our panel tonight. Keenan said, as black professionals who could easily have taken offense to Kanye's statements, it's great to see that you all can still take an objective, professional take on his behavior. Good job, ladies. So that was a comment there. Tambra says, can you speak more about the digestive issues and the metaphysical implications?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, this is something I know really well because I suffer from severe IBS, and it really flared up for me in professional school, which was obviously a key stressful time in my life. None of the treatments would work. And so my IBS was just considered a stress-related illness. And I was essentially had to figure out how to manage it myself. So I think how I treated my own ailment was I went to Bali for a month. I turned like my phone off and I just did yoga and meditated and ate really healthy. And my whole body healed within like 2 weeks. So what that experience taught me was it illustrated to me the metaphysical link between the physical ailments, right? The reason I was unable to achieve relief in my own life after learning about the science behind everything and trying all of the medical treatments that were available and offered to me, I learned for myself that metaphysical component is just as important. So when you think about what types of emotions are in your stomach, right? Think about when you get butterflies in your stomach. Think about my stomach dropped. You know, there are all these different emotions that affect our stomach. I mean, our stomach has its own nervous system. So I think when you think about metaphysical, just think of non-visual. You know, that's the easiest way to think about it without it getting, too deep into the weeds. But when you are experiencing, severe anxiety or severe overwhelm or whatever the case may be, you are changing the chemistry, to Sadika's point, right, about the hormones your body produces. You're changing what hormones are being produced in your stomach because your body is in that energetic state of being anxious or overwhelmed or tense. And because of that, a lot of times you're not digesting food or you're not breaking it down the way it needs to be. So, the cause can be different and the manifestations can be different in individuals, but the link there is really, you might notice you can eat the same food and your body responds to it differently depending on the emotional state you're in. And that is really because the environment that your emotions are creating in your stomach affects the digestion. So, stress can show up in the stomach a number of ways, obviously, right? You can have stomach aches, you can have stomach pains, but you can also not be digesting your food. You can have issues with malnourishment. You can have issues, it can show up a number of different ways. So when thinking about that metaphysical link, what I always tell my clients, I always say start with, when you are noticing you're having those feelings or when you notice you're having stomach issues, what are you, pause right there and just take that pause and assess what's going on, right? What are you thinking about? Are you somewhere in particular? Are you in motion? Is there an activity you're doing that, you know, maybe you're balancing your checkbook and you notice all of a sudden you get a stomach ache, right? I mean, so that's a metaphysical link right there.
I've never shopped more on Amazon than I have during the pandemic.
Right. Right. So I mean, it, again, what I always really encourage everyone to know is that you are your own best healer, and like no one can tell you how to heal yourself, but there are a lot of tools and resources that can help you sort of sort through and assess things. So the number one thing when you're thinking about a metaphysical link to a digestive problem is to pause and assess time of day, what you're doing, what you're thinking about, and how you're feeling overall. And if you keep a journal of that, you might start to notice there are common patterns that are repeating. There are certain activities that cause this issue. There are certain foods even. You know, you start to be able to kind of diagnose yourself in a really personal and honest way.
Wow. Drop the mic on all of that. Taking notes again. Thank you so much for those tips. We appreciate you. Someone said, I need to listen to my body. I'm notorious for pushing through. That is absolutely true. That's like another badge of honor. Push through. Like, wait a minute, stop, pause, like you said, and let's address that. So that is for sure something to take note of. Bridget says, I've had 2 primary care physicians offer me anti-anxiety meds without suggesting that I see a therapist. Is that common? Is it another example of how the medical industry is failing Black women?
So I think it is common.
Take a sigh.
I think it can be common depending on the provider. If that's a primary care physician, their way of dealing with issues, one of them is through medication management. And so that might be the lens that they're looking through. Again, I think it's important to consider that while those medications may help you to feel less anxious, they aren't, identifying your triggers. They aren't identifying your thoughts. Like Danielle mentioned, it's the connection between your thoughts and your feelings and your behaviors is very strong. And so it can be helpful to journal out and write the type of anxious thoughts you're having so you can see, like, what am I thinking? Are these things true? And try to challenge some of those thoughts. But I think I would recommend trying therapy first. And then if you feel like, maybe that isn't enough, to do both together. But I would always recommend therapy being part of your treatment process and not just medication.
Agreed. Definitely agreed. If you're going to do medication in my opinion is just the Band-Aid. It only helps to suppress the symptoms of the anxiety, but it doesn't help you eliminate the cause of the anxiety. So you have to work them both. It helps you to suppress the symptoms enough so that now I can have enough of the mental energy to work through the other things that are causing the anxiety in the first place, so that we can now hopefully reduce the need for the actual medication.
Wow, that's really good. Thank you for that. And as we sort of round out here, in regards to the physical symptoms, Ellen says, can stress cause a constant warm, intense feeling on the back of the head? I don't know.
I mean, I think the physical manifestation of stress in individuals is just as unique as a fingerprint. So there isn't really a hard and fast rule. Like stress doesn't, I mean, there are some general ways stress manifests for most people, but if you are, experiencing new physical sensations, number one, you should go to your doctor, your primary care doctor, and just make sure that everything is good with you medically. They'll run like blood work and make sure all your labs and everything are normal. And if everything checks out, then you would assume it's a stress-related condition by a diagnosis of exclusion of other adverse things. So there's not really a hard and fast rule. I would say the best thing you can do is at least see your primary care doctor when you experience new sensations. So that way you can have a full assessment and make sure all your levels and everything check out and that's not something deeper happening. And then if everything is normal with your doctor, typically again, once you can exclude those more serious things, then you can diagnose it as a stress-related illness.
Perfect. All right, guys. Well, that is our time. I want to give a round of applause, and you guys show some love to our panelists. Thank you so much, Tamara, Sadika, Danielle, for all the wisdom and insight that you guys shared with us tonight. Absolutely beneficial. Took all my notes over here. I'm going to implement those and apply those to my life. So thank you so much. I want to give a shout out to our host for tonight, the Melanin My Doc mobile app. It uses, guys, a geolocation directory and unique search parameters such as provider specialty or current symptoms, illnesses, and it connects you or your family to Black healthcare providers in your area. So make sure you look out for the Melanin My Doc mobile app dropping in August, who is our host for tonight for Melanin Talk. So again, thank you all for joining us. This was incredible. Again, ladies, we appreciate you. Shout out to you, Fred, for bringing this together. And everyone, apply these things to your life. Let's be healthy, and let's get through this pandemic and this racial uprising together and stronger than we were before.
Amen.
So have a great night. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see y'all next time. Peace.